What if I told you that in 2018, a wildfire in California became so intense, so impossibly hot that it created its own weather system? What if I told you it spawned a tornado made entirely of fire? This is not science fiction. This happened, and it changed everything we thought we knew about wildfires. California in the summer of 2018 was a tinderbox. Years of drought had dried the land to its bones. Forests were brittle. Hillsides were covered in dead grass. The air was hot and the winds were strong, and all it ever needs is a single spark. On July 23, 2018, that spark came near the city of Redding in Northern California. A trailer with a flat tire dragged along the highway. Metal scraped asphalt. Sparks flew into dry roadside grass. Within minutes, a fire was born. Within hours, it had a name: the Carr Fire. In the first days, firefighters believed they could contain it. Thousands of personnel were deployed. Aircraft dropped retardant across the hillsides. The fire was dangerous, but fires in California are always dangerous in summer. This one, though, was different. The Carr Fire was growing faster than anything firefighters had seen. It was consuming terrain at a rate that made no sense, racing uphill, jumping roads, crossing fire breaks that should have stopped it. The reason became clear on the evening of July 26th. The fire had grown so large, so hot, it had begun generating its own wind. When a wildfire burns intensely enough, the superheated air above it rises violently into the atmosphere. Cooler air rushes in from all sides to fill the vacuum. That rushing air begins to spin. Scientists call it a fire whirl. But what happened near Redding on the night of July 26th was not just a fire whirl. It was a full fire tornado, with wind speeds measured at over 130 kilometers per hour, equivalent to an EF3 tornado. This column of spinning fire stretched over a kilometer into the sky. It was so powerful it threw burning debris the size of cars through the air. It tore steel transmission towers from the ground and bent them like paper clips. One firefighter engineer, Brad Michaels, was evacuating a neighborhood when the fire tornado overtook his path. He barely escaped with his life, watching the tornado destroy everything behind him as he drove. The Carr Fire did not discriminate. It tore through the community of Keswick in minutes. It crossed the Sacramento River, fire jumping water, and entered the western neighborhoods of Redding, California's 8th largest city. Families who had minutes earlier believed they were safe suddenly had seconds to run. Some made it, some did not. By the time the Carr Fire was finally contained on August 30th, 38 days after it began, it had burned through nearly 90,000 acres of land. It destroyed over 1,600 structures. It killed 8 people, and it left an entire region asking one question: how do you fight a fire that makes its own weather? The answer, scientists and fire officials admitted, is you can't. Not the way we used to. The 2018 Carr Fire tornado was a landmark moment in wildfire science. It was the first officially documented fire tornado in California history, powerful enough to be classified as an EF3 by the National Weather Service. It proved that climate change, drought, and years of accumulated dry vegetation had created a new kind of wildfire, one that meteorologists and fire behavior analysts had theorized about but never seen at this scale. After Carr, fire agencies across the United States began changing how they train, how they model fire behavior, and how they issue evacuation orders, because waiting to see which way a fire moves is no longer an option when the fire can change the weather itself. In the months after the Carr Fire, communities in and around Redding began rebuilding. Trees that had stood for 100 years were gone. Neighborhoods that had housed generations of families were reduced to foundations and ash. But people came back. They planted new trees. They rebuilt homes. They held on to the place they loved, even knowing that the fire could return. That in a warmer, drier world, fire season no longer has an end. In Redding today, the sky is blue again. The hills are slowly turning green again. But every summer, residents watch the horizon, and they remember the night the sky turned orange and a tornado of fire came for their city. The Carr Fire, 90,000 acres, 1,600 structures, 8 lives, and the first fire tornado in California history. Climate change isn't coming for California, it's already here. Subscribe for more untold disaster stories from around the world.